Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Mint Street Mondays, home of the Mint Street Monday Show. One Carolina, home of the Mint Street Monday Show. I appreciate you joining me this morning on this beautiful post-Oscar morning. Had to start off with a little Wang Dang Doodle. If you guys aren't familiar with that song, that is a remake of an old school Howlin' Wolf song for the Center soundtrack, man. Salute to Michael B. Jordan on winning Best Actor. Man, we had a time last night, man. I had a great time with my family yesterday. Spent a lot of time out with the wife and kids, and then came home, watched a little bit of the Oscars, and got to see, Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan. Of course, Leo DiCaprio's movie won a bunch of awards as well. Man, it was a great show. So I appreciate y'all joining me this morning. Cannot get this thing started without shouting out the OCs. Shout out to the OCs, the original cats, my channel members. If you want to become a member of the OCs, the original cast, $1.99 per month to support the channel. I appreciate it so much. We try our best to bring you some of the best content, man. We got one that's circulating out there right now with the Real Ball Watcher. I appreciate him for coming through. We had a really good conversation on post-free agency. I got a clip that I'm going to go back to that if many of you didn't get to hear some really interesting and kind of go a little bit deeper on one of the clips that one of the things that he mentioned as far as the Jaylen Phillips signing was concerned, that I thought was fascinating, and just the ripple effect that will have, for the team as we move forward. And so salute to him. But yeah, OCs, if you want to join, $1.99 per month to support the channel, and I very, very much appreciate that. So starting off with some of the comments, I appreciate you guys. I see you already. Steve O, my man in the building this morning. Nicole Ivory, my moderator. Shout out to Nicole. Made for more, my man Low. Man, yes, sir. All night long, way to start Monday off. Yes, indeed. I don't watch the Oscars, but I did. K-pop, the K-pop Demon Hunters won Best Song, if I'm not mistaken. So my kids love that song. My wife loves that song. So I don't know a whole lot about that song, but hey, it is what it is. And yes, my mock draft, man, I ain't gonna lie to you. So this is different for me. I have not withheld my mock draft this long in my channel's history, right? Now, I ain't no expert, but I know mock drafts are just fun. I know some people, get upset with mock drafts that they see or whatever like that. I'm like, man, it's all a crapshoot. You don't know who's going to pick who. Last year, a bunch of us had McMillan, and we got it right. Now, I will say that last year, I did go super hard in the paint for Jimmy Horn Jr., and we did indeed draft him, so I thought that was pretty cool. But again, it's all a guess. It's all a crapshoot. We don't really know. I think this year more than ever, we don't know what's going to happen because of how much we've covered in free agency, so we don't really know what direction we'll go in. But I will be dropping my mock draft very soon. I'm not going to commit to this week because I've said it last week and I didn't do it, and that's not like, I don't like to say things and not commit to them. So just know that it will be coming soon. But Jason Scruggs, I appreciate your support, man. But anyway, so I didn't really get a chance to cover this. Real Ball Watcher hit me in the DMs and was like, dog, we really, we should have went, the next day as opposed to when we actually went live, because, we were really shocked that this whole situation, took place with the Wallace signing. The Walker signing. And I got to tell you, man, this one, all the moves that we've made have been substantial, right? They've been excellent moves. This one, to me, might be up there with the best. I would say this one's up there with the Jaylen Phillips move, man, because you had a need. I ain't gonna lie to you guys. All that great stuff we did in free agency, I was really concerned about what it was going to look like with the left tackle spot. What were we going to do at 19? In my opinion, I don't really see any of these guys. I think you got the Francis kid from Miami. I know a lot of people like Caleb Lomu from Utah. But once you really get past those two, and really even past Francis, in my opinion, I think all these guys are kind of like lumped together. You know what I'm saying? Like, from the tackle position, I don't see anybody that really stands out, right? Now, some of these guards, the guy from, I think, Arizona State's Max Ickey, I can't say his name right. The guard from Georgia, there's a few guards out there that I think one of the Notre Dame or Penn State guards is, really highly touted. And I apologize, and I don't know these names right off the top of my head. But like after, the tackles that I just mentioned, they kind of all just lump together. So it's not like anybody that kind of stands out from the pack, right? So I was concerned because, I like Caden Proctor a lot, but I know he may have some athletic issues. Bigger guys like that, when they come into the league and, you got smaller edges like, Ruben Bain is coming in the league right now that can, has really great bend. That can give a bigger guy like that problems. Now, Caden Proctor is an athletic freak. And in the run game, he would be dominant, in my opinion. But, there's still that passing element. So for them to actually go out and sign Walker was huge, right? Especially on the deal that they got him on, a 1 year, $10 million deal. Now, you compare that to the last big contract that was signed for a left tackle, which was Dan Moore, a 4 year, $82 million deal with 20.5 guaranteed. Now, many people thought that would be kind of what the market looked like for Walker this season, right? Now, I know Walker, here's the thing. It's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation when it comes to him, right? Because he played excellent at the beginning of the season. And then things kind of tailed off towards, the second half of the season. So it's one of those things where it's like you hope that you get the front side of the production, and you hope that whatever came about on the second side of the production, the second half of the production, can be coached up, right? Because some of that could be that. It could be that simple. Or it could be that, from a physical perspective, you kind of fall off a cliff. But I don't really think that's the case with this guy. And the reason is because the one thing that does stand out about him is durability. This kid is durable, plays a lot of snaps, played over 3,000 snaps with the Packers in his time there. A super, super durable guy, right? So he's always going to be available. And like I said, in the pass blocking, pretty solid. Actually, sometimes great. When they played against San Francisco, stonewalled Nick Bosa, right? Really the biggest trouble game and kind of where things started to fall off the cliff a bit for him was honestly against Cleveland. I mean, he played pretty well against us, but, we still had our way, to the best of our ability and still came out with that win, right? It was a dogfight the whole game. But the game that really got him was the Cleveland game, right? And so, but the reason I don't look at that and have any kind of like, that doesn't really bother me as much. And I know this sounds crazy. I know it sounds crazy because the last thing you would want to see or say about a guy is like, you're not bothered by a lack of production or giving up sacks or giving up pressures or whatever like that. It's Myles Garrett. I had an argument with Brad off camera if Myles Garrett was not the best defensive player in NFL history. And of course he told me no, right? But I think he's one of. So he's going to do that to a lot of people, right? He did it to Ickey. Now granted, it was early in Ickey's career, but it happened to Ick. It's going to happen to some of the greats. He broke the sack record last year. I don't care about the game situation because when the sack record was, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the sack record, clearly it had to have been set a few times prior. So the time that it was set prior, there wasn't 16 games, or a couple of times when it was set, I should say. But there was a time where there wasn't 16 games and it was set, right? Then you get to 16 games and it's set. Now you're 18 games. I mean, it is what it is, right? So the time is the time. So he set the sack record. This is a guy that's one of the best to ever do it. So again, I'm not taking anything away from Walker based on, how he fared against Myles Garrett. But I do think that what's fascinating is his durability. And then when you look at his numbers next to Ickey's numbers, there's not like a huge drop off, right? It's kind of it's a wash in a lot of ways. So you get an opportunity to do two things simultaneously. One, obviously, Ickey gets a chance to get healthy. And you've covered the spot that's needed to be covered with the left tackle. But two, you get to make the choice, right? So, hey, I mean, if this guy comes in and he plays super high level and he's durable for the whole season, unfortunately, that's going to be something that kind of goes against Ick. Now, whether or not you still want to pay Ick for time served, then, there's that option to be made. But you just give yourself a great opportunity to cover a spot and do some amazing things in the draft. And to me, that's what's more important than anything else, is that you didn't put yourself in a position. I think back to when we drafted DJ Johnson. And I ain't trying to shoot at DJ Johnson, right? But I'll say this. When you draft a guy, I don't think it was so bad that you drafted a DJ Johnson based on potential. But you drafted him because it was somebody that you needed, right? It was a position of need. A few years ago, we moved up in the draft to draft Matt Corral, right? And that completely, now, injury kind of hampered him his first year, but it completely fell off a cliff. Like it was a terrible pick, right? I was excited. There's many people in the community that was excited, so I'm not gonna try to switch up now and flip and be like, oh yeah, no, it was the most horrible pick ever. No, I was super excited when we drafted Matt Corral, so I ain't gonna be fake. But at the same time, it was like you were drafting for a need way in the wrong way possible. Moving up to do it, like with DJ, you're moving up, you're moving around on the draft board to draft somebody who hadn't even played like a full, like, he didn't really have a huge resume at the edge position, right? And then we had that whole thing with the, got to set the edge before we rush the passer and all that kind of stuff that was said in the blueprint. I know some people looked at like Dan Morgan and was like, man, if you really look closely, you can see where he's kind of like scowling, on the sideline. And I mean, behind the scenes. And I didn't see that personally. Now, I hadn't watched it close enough to be able to get that, for that to be a logical assessment. But I did think in the beginning when he was hired that I was wondering just how much of an input he had on that, right? Clearly not much at all, right? Because, man, Dan he has absolutely completely changed. I don't think it can be understated just how much he's changed the game for the Panthers. And not just, it's the way that he's making the moves, right? And identifying the right type of talent. Now, these guys still got to go out and perform. They still got to go out and perform. But I do still think that Dan is doing some things that we've just not seen here before that can really set us up. Like when we go into the draft, very few times in the last, let's say 10 years, right? You could, if you want to say this from the past for the Panthers, then you could, suggest that, right? But like, we're just not a team that goes into the draft that can literally just we'll just take whoever's best available. It don't matter who it is, right? So at that 19 spot, it literally can be anybody. I mean, these are the most fun conversations to have. So when y'all asked me earlier about have I done my mock draft, honestly, man, I kind of like, have just been, man, should I go this way? Should I go this way? So I'm going to drop more than one, obviously. But it's exciting because you don't know how the board's going to fall. And you could literally pick anybody. Are there still some needs? Of course, right? But you still leave room, like, let's just say hypothetically, okay? We'll talk about one of them. You know what? I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Shout out to Raising Kane YT for the super chat. It says, Dan set us up good this offseason. My man was cooking. By the way, no hate to Rico, but can't wait for Mr. Brown to tattoo him for his comments. Keep pounding. Oh, man, we're going to get to that too. Now, I did want to, I was going to wait till towards the end of the show to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it now. My host, Invisible Brad, will be here very soon. But I want to play this clip real quick because this was a clip from a show I did with, shout out to the Real Ball Watcher. And this was a clip of him talking about the ripple effect of the Jaylen Phillips signing. And I'm going to be honest with you, this one got me excited.
Yeah, you're right. And I think the best thing, speaking to that Milton Williams point, the best thing about Milton Williams or somebody like that, you can't leave them one-on-one. And that's what you see with Jaylen Phillips. That's why his pressure numbers are so high, because he's been on D-lines where he's been left one-on-one and he cooked them. And then they had to switch it. That's why you look at Bradley Chubb's sack numbers. They're super high because of Jaylen Phillips. Like, yeah. Let's get that clear to people. Bradley Chubb had put up 8.5 sacks the past 2 years, 10 or whatever in his first year in Miami, because Jaylen Phillips gets there first. He's not the best finisher. I'll give him that. Mm-hmm. He needs to get better at finishing the play. He got to get better at wrapping up and making the tackle. But when he misses that tackle, it's still a negative play. It could be an incompletion. He's forced interceptions because he missed that sack, and they kind of had to throw it into double coverage or whatever covered player. Or the next person that's there, your cleanup guy, Bradley Chubb in that case, he's going to get a sack. So that's the thing with our group. We had a lot of, and it's the thing, we're going to get a little nitty gritty here because I play D-line. So y'all know I don't play by
this. Get to it.
Y'all know I play. So the same way everybody in the wide receiver room or like on the basketball team has a role, it's the same for the D-line. You got your pocket pushers. The guys just close the pocket. I think that's what Derek Brown is best at. He's just going to overwhelm somebody, not going to use a whole bunch of moves, but he's going to make that pocket smaller. I think that's what we've had for the past 4 years, which is why our pass rush haven't been the best. Then you have your slashers, your loopers. Those are your stunt guys, your Harold Landrys that get a whole bunch of sacks off of stunts and things like that. And then you got your guys that you run with speed. You know, he's just making people step up so those pocket pushers get sacks. And then you got these guys. You got your Jaylen Phillips.
Mm-hmm.
You got your Max Crosby's. You got your Trey Hendricksons, your Milton Williams, where you cannot leave him one-on-one or you're losing. And that opens up for the rest of those other guys. So I think we've needed a guy like this so bad. And the best part about his game to me is how he's able to kick inside. I made a tweet about it. If I can remember off the top of my head. Matter of fact, I can just pull it up. I think it was 51 snaps on.
Now, here's where he really gets to it. This is the detail here about where you can move guys around and stuff like that is what really matters in this clip more than anything.
At defensive tackle, which is, yeah, I got it right here on NFL Pro. Thank God. Look at that. 51 snaps at defensive tackle. Either 3 technique, 0 technique, whatever it is. 51 of those snaps. He had 18 pressures on those snaps. That is a 35% pressure rate.
My God.
So on 35% of the time where he kicked inside over the guard, he was getting the pressure. That's much higher than his regular pressure rate of about 15 or 14% on the edge. So he's even better inside. That lets you bring another edge rusher on. That lets you bring those loopers that Princely Umami-Yellen. So you can kick this guy inside, and now you really got to pick. Do I double him inside because he's much faster than my guard, or do I let Derrick Brown just maul this guy one-on-one? But then now we got 2 extra edge rushers off where if you go add a guy, maybe a Cassius Howell or something like that, day 3, that can beat a guy one-on-one, or if you take a Caleb Banks that can beat a guy one-on-one and you kick both these guys inside, you're losing no matter what. You're losing no matter what. That's what he brings. That's what he brings, man.
Dog. I thought that clip was fascinating. And the reason is because, you know, now with the draft, like I said, you can really do anything. And because you've solidified this left tackle position for the season, because, you know, make no mistake, this guy's going to be the starter, right? He had a competition. This dude's a 7th round pick. And he had a competition with a guy that they picked, if I'm not mistaken, in the first round a couple of years prior, and like beat him out twice. So this was a huge, huge value for us. And then when you couple that with the moves that they made, I mentioned this on that same live. It is extremely important. This was another one of those deals, right? It's extremely important that if you believe in a guy unilaterally, you're willing to do whatever you need to do to get him. Now, I know the contract, by some measures, seems a little bit of a stretch, right? When you look at the sack numbers total, right? The pressures to me are equally as important, but the sack numbers, yeah. I mean, it's not as high as you would like it to be for a guy making, you know, as much as he's making per year. That said, though, sometimes you got to pay the tax. When you're not a team that is, you know, the most desirable destination, you don't have multiple Lombardis in your past. You don't have, you know, we made the playoffs, yes, but it's still an 8 and 9 team. Sometimes you got to get taxed a little bit. But in my opinion, it's going to work out. And I think that solidifying this move at the offensive tackle position only creates more opportunities for your defense to do things like he mentioned. The whole reason I brought that up compared to this move is because now with this solidified, you don't have to go chasing your tail for a left tackle. You don't have to make a mistake at the left tackle spot. I know some people are saying in the chat they don't like Caden Proctor. I agree with that to some degrees, right? Because there's things that I don't like about him. But when I was looking at 19, I was like, well, he's the most likely option to be there. And to me, like I said, this is not the best tackle draft, right? Now, you're always going to find some guys because, I mean, clearly, this guy was a 7th round pick. But, man, what a move. Dan Morgan has just done some things that are just unbelievable, you know, this free agent period, man, and just building this roster. And I can't wait to see what they do in the draft because, I mean, last year's draft, you could argue, especially if Princely turns up this year, you could make an argument within, I would say you need 3 years to see. But with T-Mac, with Princely, with Evans, with, you know, to see what Horn might do this year, you know, all these guys are contributors. So that's already a good thing, right? But you're talking about like some of these guys becoming Pro Bowlers, you know, like long-standing starters for this team. This could shape out to be one of the best drafts we ever had, like ever, last year's draft. So I think you still need some more time to figure that out, but it's still exciting. Shout out to, who was this? Jarrell Mason, my man, with the $5 super chat. He says, Dan is cooking this offseason and shoring up needs at free agency still allows us the wiggle room to go BPA at 19. I agree. Dan did have the the quote where he said, hey, if a receiver is the best player at 19, I'm taking him. I don't think that there's a chance. To me, in my opinion, I know people like Denzel Boston. I do too. I know people like Carnell Tate. I do too. Really, to me, there's only one receiver, in my opinion, if he's there, that you can't pass him, and that's Jordan Tyson. But I don't see him being there, right? So, yeah, I think it's going to be probably another defensive player. I'm not going to say who I like the most because, like I said, my mock draft is coming. But, yeah. And then Nervash, yeah. I genuinely have no idea who they'll draft. I think this is rare as well. Eric Heineke says he also likes the DT from Ohio State. Don't know a whole lot about him, but I will look him up. Eric J8B1P. That's a long name. I'm just gonna say Eric. What do you think the Panthers' biggest needs? I still think you at this point, depth. I still think wide receiver 3 is up in the air. I mean, I know you brought in John Mechie. Obviously, you want to see Xavier develop. You want to see what you get from Horn. It's got the one thing I love about the Mechie signing is that now you literally have. To me, that was. Mechie hadn't done a lot in other places, but I think really with the right opportunity, he could thrive. Now you bring in competition because it's a pretty deep competition now because David Moore played well when he wasn't hurt. So now you throw him into the mix. So you literally got, for that wide receiver 3 spot, you've got XL, John Mechie, David Moore, Jimmy Horn, and who knows who they draft. They may draft a guy. I like Zachariah Branch. I think he would add an element to this offense of an explosion element to this offense that we don't have. I think John Mechie kind of does that. He's a guy that just get open underneath and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what that 3 spot looks like. It's up in the air, and really for the person who it belongs to, we all know whose it is. It's yours to take, bro. It really is. Like, this is one of those moments where you just really get an opportunity to say, hey, I worked hard in the offseason. I took advice from people, and I came back and I took it, right? Because it is yours to take. But we'll see how that looks. And Prince of Black said we paid for the disruption with Phillips. I couldn't agree more. Could not agree more. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about what we are getting from the tackle. But before I do, make sure to smash that like button. We got 140 watching between 2 platforms, 30 likes. Let's get those likes up to like 50, man. Smash that like button. It is free. I appreciate y'all so much for being here on this morning, joining me on Mint Street Mondays. Now, this is from the Acme Packing Company. Just a little bit of details on what we could be getting from our offensive tackle, Walker. Says the Packers quite frankly struck gold with Walker after a moderately decorated career as longtime starter with Penn State. My man was voted for 2/3 Big Team, all Big Team 10 teams by the media and 2 honorable mentions by coaches. But he slid to the 7th round. And the biggest thing was the concerns with his athleticism. Now, I'll ask y'all a question, and you can answer this in the chat, and I'll get back to it. When I mentioned Proctor, if Proctor slides, which I don't think he will because this is not a good left tackle draft, but if he slides far enough down into the 2nd round, do you take him? I think I know the answer to that question, but I'll let y'all answer it from me. He was shaky at first, leading to an in-season position battle with longtime swing tackle, guess who? Yosh Nijman. But Walker eventually prevailed and was the Packers starter down the stretch in 2023 and into the playoffs. Now, here's what's interesting about that. Yosh Nijman retires. Good chance we probably don't sign this guy if he doesn't retire. But considering how long he was still kind of out there, I'm glad we did. Still may have, but more than likely not, right? Because Yosh Nijman got snaps with us last year and played, pretty solid. He was a good stopgap. Let's just say that. Not somebody that's gonna, be a big changeover by any stretch, but a good stopgap. But I am interested to know if Yosh kind of gave a recommendation here. They go in and ask him, like, what do you think about this guy? Oh, yeah, go get him. Go get him. The next spring, though, the Packers spent a 1st-round pick on left tackle Jordan Morgan, presumably setting up another position battle for Walker. But the Packers were confident enough in his play that Morgan never really got a crack at the job. Isn't that amazing, right? So we would hope that same thing would happen with what I just mentioned here. You bring in John Mechie. David Moore comes back. Your 1st-round pick, hey, man, it's yours for the taking. It is yours for the taking. Go take it. In total, Walker gave the Packers more than 3,000 snaps at tackle, counting the playoffs over his final 3 seasons. And I think you'll agree that it's a pretty tremendous value for a 7th-round pick. Could not agree more. And somewhat hilariously, he now presumably will take the vacated spot by Josh Nijman's departure and ultimate retirement. Yeah, it is fascinating. It's a really cool thing that he was available to be able to do that. Now, this is more Packers, Packer writers, thoughts on Walker and what they feel like the good and the bad was. Like, look, you can always tell what you're getting in a player by how other people feel about the player when they see him gone, right? When you get him. Teteroy McMillan gets drafted 8th overall. You see Michael Parsons upset. LA Rams were talking about how they wanted to trade to get him. There were a lot of people who wanted him at that spot. Some people didn't even think he would be there. So they completely changed their draft boards up because it's like, there's no way this kid's going to be there. And he was. And now he's with us. And then he's Offensive Rookie of the Year. And we all will know what more than likely is getting ready to happen. He's getting ready to become one of the best receivers in all of football. So a beautiful, beautiful thing, right? The good, for starters, one of Walker's best attributes is his availability. Talked about that before. He's appeared in every game over the past 3 seasons and only appeared on the final injury report for a given game twice, once with a knee injury in 2024 and once with a quad in 2025. He was questionable for both games, but played in both. Maybe it comes with his size. He's 6'6", 324-pound mammoth. But he's always been durable and a reliable player for the Packers. And he's a decent pass blocker too. It's one thing to be healthy. It's another thing to actually do things with that health. And for the most part, Walker has. Make no mistake, he's never been a Pro Bowl caliber tackle, but he acquits himself well. In his 3 seasons as a starter or partial starter in Green Bay, Walker ranked 22nd, 19th, and 35 in pass blocker among players who lined up for at least 500 regular season snaps, according to Pro Football Focus. Not elite numbers, to be sure, but certainly adequate. You can do a lot worse. Now, here's what I'll say to that. If we go back and look at a guy, we talk about this from a defensive perspective, right? And we mentioned this when we talked about Jaylen Walker. There's a whole host of guys that you can kind of put in the same category of which I will mention. Guys like Trey Hendrickson, guys like Zach Bond, defensively. Guys historically from a left tackle position like Jason Peters. He was another guy who was drafted if Jason Peters actually was either a 7th-round pick or he's a free agent, one or the other. You guys in the chat can let me know for sure. But the point is that these guys come in, and when you get to a new situation, sometimes a change of scenery will change everything for you. Trey Hendrickson was a good player with the Saints, but he was not the player that he ended up becoming when he was with the Bengals, right? The 17 sacks 2 years in a row, that came later in his career. It wasn't something that was early, right? So he had been around for a while. Zach Bond, a guy that was just kind of buried on the depth chart, gets a chance at, off-ball linebacker and flourishes and becomes the highest paid and one of the best linebackers in football now. So Devin Lloyd, another great example. Sometimes these guys it just starts to click better late. Maybe you get around somebody that can really help train you a little better. The Packers have a unique situation. They don't have an owner, right? So their brain trust doesn't really it's weird how they hire people and stuff like that. Now they have people that kind of overtake the operation, but they don't have the traditional owner like the other 31 NFL teams, right? So I do think that there is something to be said for facilities and coaches and, recommendations for nutrition and all the other kind of stuff. Every organization has their own philosophy when it comes to that stuff. We've got some of the better offensive line coaches in the league because it's been a better position for us and one of the better overall position groups, especially when you consider. Now, this is the thing to consider when I say that. When you consider the amount of different variations of our offensive line that have existed over the last 2 seasons, right? Last year and the year before, the most variations of offensive line starters in the league. And we still held it down. We were still able to get 100-yard rushing games. We were still able to get Bryce Young's 448-yard game versus the Falcons, the 3-touchdown game versus the Cowboys. So when you bring in someone who's a little bit more talented than a Josh Nijman, and then you couple that with the coaching and his durability, it can stand to reason that this kid could have a breakout year. A breakout year for him outside of just being an average tackle would be a Pro Bowler and maybe even an All-Pro. Be that second or first team, who knows? But the point is that, like I said, you get to a new location, things kind of change. You're more inspired. You know what I'm saying? You're on a playoff team there, so you know what it's like. You know what it takes. You've been on the playoff team 2 years, right? Before you got to us. So you know what it looks like to get to that point. So you're bringing that with you. Now let's couple what we got here and put it together and see what happens. So this could be a really, really high level signing, right? Now, got to take the bad with the good. Like old Troy Maxson said with the fences, got to take the crookeds with the straights. On the flip side, Walker is not a mauler you might expect as someone with his physical dimensions. He simply isn't the road grader he should be for someone who's bigger than almost every defensive lineman out there. Correction, he is not. 324 for a 6'6 guy is lean, and you can look at him on film and tell. That's why I was talking about with Caden Proctor being the size he is and the weight he is. When you're not, it kind of takes away from your agility. Ask me how I know, being a guy that's similar sized. But a 324 that's lean for a 6'6 guy, believe it or not, especially depending on how you're built. So, yeah, he's not the biggest of guys out there. As good as his pass blocking grades are, his run blocking grades are proportionately unimpressive. In the same data said as before, Walker ranked 47th, 57th, and 54 as a run blocker among comparable tackles. It has been a legitimate struggle at times for the Packers to run behind him. I don't know if I'd go as far as to call him a liability in the run game, and pass blocking is certainly more of an important, it's certainly more important than the modern NFL, but it's certainly not one of the better parts of his game. Completely understand that, but I also think that one thing that's important, Real Ball Watcher brought this up, what kind of scheme are you running? Is it zone blocking? You know what I'm saying? Like, the scheme is just as important as what, his abilities are as well, right? So that'll be interesting to dive into. The bottom line, Walker is an adequate starting tackle who should be consistently available over the life of his contract. Overall, Walker may not wow you as a player, but he'll be a decent starting tackle. You will have to cover for some of his weaknesses, and you'll have to accept some negative plays, but you've got a good one here, or at very least, an adequate one. You also have the benefit of not having overpaid for him. Nobody had a worse time with Rasheed Walker in free agency this spring. Nobody had a worse time than Rasheed. Oh, yeah, I agree with that. Nobody had a worse time than Rasheed Walker in free agency. You would have thought that, especially when you consider the need for tackles and this draft having that's the one thing I don't understand. When you watch what Seattle did to Will Campbell, I think is his last name. Y'all can correct me in the chat. I'm not saying that, like, clearly every tackle doesn't look like that, but it proves to you that it's a premium position, right? This is a crazy good edge rushing class, right? There's a lot of guys who are going to be very good. When I say crazy good, I mean, like, not everybody's going to be a superstar. I think Ruben Bain's going to be a superstar. I think David Bailey can be a superstar. But you got a whole lot of guys that if they go into the right situation can make some big-time impact. That makes this draft very good. Akeem Mesidor, older guy, but, man, if he goes to a championship-level team, that's a huge pickup. Cassius Howell as a rotational player, that's a huge pickup. Right? Same thing with the linebackers. There's a lot of linebackers out there in this draft that if they go to the right situation, we were talking about Harold Landry. What does he play? What does he do? Right? If he goes to the right spot, he can wreak havoc because that's all he's done at LSU. But he's one of those guys like Isaiah Simmons where it's like, well, where do you put him? Great question. But the point is that being said, left tackle is a premium position. Why did he fall this far? Like, what did they see on tape that made them, it doesn't appear that there's like an effort issue or anything like that. So I'm interested. I'm interested to know, where that fall came from as well. But nonetheless, we got him. I'm really excited about it. I could care less, what anybody else thinks about it. We're good. So I'm good with it. So salute to Walker joining the Packers. Joining the Panthers from the Packers. And we look forward to what you do this season for us, brother. Let me read some of these comments here. It says I can see Walker improve. In Carolina. Is it a stopgap? I'm not sure. That's what makes this so interesting. Like, it could be. He could very well be a stopgap. He could also very well be a guy that plays well enough. If he's an all-pro, if he's a pro bowler, of the Mike Jackson persuasion, right, who didn't make the Pro Bowl, obviously, but if he has that high level of production, you just don't know what they decide to do, especially with a guy that's durable. Because that's what they always say was the old adage: the best ability is availability, right? I like Ickey a lot, and I personally I would want Ickey to get his contract with us, right? But it's kind of a wash when you look at their stats. I would say Ickey's probably better in the run. Well, actually, not even probably. I would say definitely better in the run game. But you don't know, man. It could be a stopgap. It could be that they pay him. Who knows, right? So, did I call him Wallace? I might have said Wallace. My bad. Yeah. Rasheed Wallace. Yeah, my bad, y'all. Miss Douglas, what's going on? Good to see you this morning. Nervash says, "Do you really want to run stuff in DT in 19? Is the value really there? I feel like I can get a decent one in later rounds." Yeah, I don't know. That'd be very interesting. Who knows? But welcome into the show. Not my moderator. Man, I'm all over the place this morning. I'm tired, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gotten a lot of sleep lately, but I don't care because I like to work. It's grind season, man. Shout out to my man, Invisible Brad, in the building. Brad, welcome to the channel. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Got hemmed up with the rims up this morning, and thought I'd be in much quicker. But wow, what a week of free agency! I don't think we've ever seen a week of free agency like this in the history of the Panthers. I mean, we've signed someone basically for every need we had across the board. Some way more exciting than others. But just the fact that, like we talked about yesterday, I mean, we addressed everything. It was really cool, too, because, Monday, everyone was freaking out and everyone was kind of pining over the Jaylen Phillips signing. And, Doug was saying in the chat, man, we're not done yet. And we were not by a long shot. My friend Pat called me and was like, man, where are we getting all this money from? And I've always said that I believe in, Brant Tillis is a wizard with the money, but wow, I mean, he has really combed every corner and stretched every dollar and made every adjustment to get these guys in. And we really, I mean, Ashawn Robinson, aging D tackle, and we didn't even cut Tommy Tremble, which everyone said was on the board, for his $6 million. And we kept Tommy in the fold. But we really have set ourselves up to do anything at 19, whereas before I was really pushing offensive tackle, and then before we signed Phillips, we were like, man, are we going to be able to get another defensive end? Is it too early? We did just draft 2 guys last year, so I would say now, I mean, it could go anywhere, but, like we were talking safety, it's just a really, really exciting free agency period so far. We still probably have a couple more small moves to make, but, I mean, they addressed everything and, got some depth, got some familiarity at receiver with Michi, and really excited.
Same, man. Same. I talked about this and I heard this kind of floating around. So I don't want to say we were too early on this because I'm sure this is probably a thought that everybody had. But there's 2 things that happened this season that I think really changed the fortunes for Carolina in their free agent, wish list and acquisitions. Because we signed some guys that, quite honestly, Brad, over the last 8 seasons probably wouldn't have came here, even if you paid them enough. They probably would have been like, no good, no, thank you, right? We're not coming there for the Frank Reich, situation and him being fired, and now you got this guy. Nope. We're not coming here for your GM that's moving around and shoving away picks for corners on another team that didn't work out and all that kind of stuff. Nah, we're good. And that can't be understated either. This move obviously wasn't a trade like the what's the kid from CJ Henderson? Was that his name? Henderson from Jacksonville when we got
Jacksonville. We traded the big tight end for him, Dan.
Yeah, Dan Arnold, right? So trading away players and getting corners and stuff like that. This is, I know this is a free agent signing, the Walker one is. It's kind of similar. The difference is, though, is that you got a guy who had high-level production. Like Green Bay was not completely thrilled. They wanted to bring him back on the deal because actually, I take that back. I think the reason, like, if you're Brian Gutekunst, you've got to justify that Morgan pick, right? So they drafted a guy. Let's see. I'd read this here just a second ago. They had drafted a guy back in 2023. It was, let's see. So David Bakhtiari came back after years of knee trouble. And then he was only back for one game, right? So Walker ended up getting the look in 2023 because David Bakhtiari came back and, didn't, obviously pan out. And I mean, obviously he had a shaky, him and Josh Nijman were kind of battling back and forth throughout the season. But then they drafted a first round left tackle, Jordan Morgan, right? And he beat him out. So I think part of this is that they're still trying to justify that pick from a few years back, right? I don't know what they're going to do because I haven't really looked that deep into it to see what they have done, and maybe the chat can kind of give me some insight on that. But, he's due for a big contract. Now, he went and bet on himself, but I could see where it would be hard to sign a guy to a long-term contract after you just picked a guy in the first round to be his replacement, and he still beat him out. And that guy is, obviously still on the roster. So, that's interesting.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of fan blowback about the Walker signing, and surprisingly, a lot about the Luke Fortner signing. And it was both of those kind of situations where there were younger guys and other guys on the roster that were deemed to be the starter and then got beat out. When I say the starter before training camp, you know what I'm saying, when everything's up in the air, and then they were beat out. And then these guys play the majority of the games, the majority of the important reps, and we signed both of them, and their fan base was livid.
Yeah.
Especially, with the Saints, because it's in the division. And, we were really up in the air. Like, what are we going to do with the center position? I mean, do we need to draft someone? Like, and Luke Fortner, if you put his PFF grades directly beside Cade Mays, they're better. Now, what you were saying earlier with Walker, I mean, he is a brick wall on the pass rush. Now, of course, he's not the kind of run grader that Ickey is, but sound blocking, engaging your guy, making sure he's taken care of until the running back gets past you. That's the big thing of it. Now, it does look good and feel good to see your, guy pushing them 5 yards down the field. But, I mean, we really, really, I don't want to say lucked out, but, we really got a savvy GM in just the way that, $10 million for a guy who completely stonewalled Nick Bosa over and over. People go back and look at, some of his film and some of his plays this year. He was a very, very good pass blocker, but just he played best against the best competition, and that always matters. And to get that, and an offensive tackle, left tackle, starting caliber left tackle, man, for $10 million, hey,
that's huge.
I believe they say he's cooking.
Yes, indeed. So shout out to King Domo TB for the 199 super chat. Hey man, we love you too, man. I appreciate you so much. So a couple of people had some questions about whether or not we would sign him. Jay Issue, my man, said, "What's up to you, Brad?" But a couple people had some questions about whether or not we sign him. Anthony Pick says, "What happens if Walker balls out? Does he get paid by us?" Now, I gave my answer on that earlier, and I said that it's a high possibility. What do you think, Brad?
Well, it all just depends. We have, again, I said it before. Timo's not getting any younger. He does, from what I've gleaned from the reports, have a bit of a degenerative, knee issue, which I know he can say is a bit of a degenerative knee issue, but he has a degenerative knee issue and he struggles, man, with pain management and, getting out there every Sunday. We don't know, we don't see, but his play hasn't really fallen off, but we've had to pay him and extend him. and eventually you've got to make a move there. So if Ickey does come back strong, which there's a big possibility this could do him in. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember a guy that was a great right tackle for us for a few years, Jeff Otah. And once he started to have his knee issues, especially even at a young age with his kind of size, it just derailed his career. And so let's say if Ickey does come back, he can be a great right tackle for us. You know what I mean?
That's a really good point, Brad. That's a really good, because I think there is a way that there's a lane where you could keep both, and you don't have to pay this like humongous max contract to Ickey to make that happen. So yeah, that's a great point, man.
Well, I mean, and it's like, when you're coming back from injury, we've already picked up your option. I mean, you're going to get, I think it's getting around 17 million, a little bit more than that this year, and you may not be ready to play till November. And moving him to right tackle can do him some justice, in his issues in pass pro, and he can still be the, mauler that we've all come to love on rundowns. And then you would have Walker on the left side, protecting the blind side with, still I feel like a reasonable contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that would be the avenue to keep them both.
Yeah.
It would be a kind of a thing where you may have to let, Ickey go out and see what his worth is on the open market. But I feel like, us drafting him growing up here, paying for, NC State, I feel like if there's not some kind of off the wall, crazy high offer, I mean, he would be cool with coming back at a reasonable offer to be our right tackle for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
And if Walker meshes and balls out in this offense, he would look to come back. I mean, we would have to compensate him, but, we were going to have to pay Ickey or someone at some point. But with the injuries, we know now that amount's not going to be what it would be or would have been had he had not got hurt before, in the playoffs. So there's an avenue to keep them both. But it just all depends on Ickey's health. And that's, still up in the air.
It's a fascinating set of circumstances, but it's one that you actually like because you could see a world where all this could come together, and then look, then next year and even this year, maybe there's guys that, like the center position, for example, right? You got Pat Coogan from Indiana. I don't know what, or your guy, Blake Miller from Clemson, right? Who knows where these guys end up on the draft board, but like if you decide to make a move at them, say in the 3rd, 4th round or whatever, then once these issues do arise, you've got a guy that's played, high level football in college that you brought in, got a chance to develop because he, you never know. He may be available right away, but he may be a guy that needs, to just kind of be around the pros, speed of the game, learn all that kind of stuff, get some opportunities if injuries arise. But then he's ready to go once this inevitable contract stuff comes up. And then, you've got your, left tackle for the next couple of years or your, right or center or whatever. So making a move like this just has, again, just like the Jaylen Phillips signing when we, talked about how that works out for other guys on the defensive line, this signing has a rippling effect for how it works out for guys that'll be put in position that'll be your guys over the next, 3 or 4 years, right? So this is a fascinating move that we have made here, man. And look, shout out to God Built 79, man, becoming a member of the OCs, the original Cats. Welcome you to the fold, my man. Hey, look, if you want to become a member of the OCs and support the channel, $1.99 per month. God Built 79 has just officially joined the OCs, and we appreciate him so much and appreciate all you who are members. And look, we appreciate you all equally, man, but I do appreciate the guys who and the gals who support the channel. I see Miss Douglas is in here a lot. Nicole is in here a lot. These are, longtime members, and I can't tell you how, and Jay Issue as well, longtime members of the channel. I am so thankful. Steve-O, like, these are people that are just near and dear to my heart, and I thank you guys so much for joining the channel, man. So, yes, sir. Let's keep it going. So, Brad, man, any last thoughts on Walker before we get to BS, man?
No. Let's keep it moving.
All right. So I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm probably gonna put my bias hat on and then take it off and put it to the side momentarily, right? I don't think that Miss Velbyhag as well. Yes, I cannot forget Miss Velbyhag. Long time member. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. But anyway, all right, let me put my my bias hat to the side for a minute, right? Just for a moment. It was a really interesting day on X, man, because I started seeing, different things about Rico Dowdle. And I think if it would have literally just been left to like Rico says he circled the Panthers when he was in the interview with the Steelers or whatever, his intro interview, when someone, because it's not like he came out and made this assertion on his own. He was asked a question, he answered it honestly, right? He was asked a direct question. Will you have the Panthers circled next season? His response, oh, absolutely. Definitely is what he said verbatim, right? And I understand that. And they probably asked him that because if Rico had not done what he done against Dallas, when he said he had them circled the previous year, right? And a little bit of a get back, then, it probably doesn't even come up, right? But to say you had them circled, come out and call your shot, and we cannot sit here and be fake. So one thing I'm not going to do is be fake and say, hey, I didn't like it when he did it last time. Nah, I was all for it. My boy, Angry Cowboys fan, he knows it all well. Me, Angry, Rico, all from the same spot, right? So, yeah, I called and was letting him have it. And he was like, man, I cannot believe that this happened. I'm like, of course, yes, because y'all been holding him back. So I can't be fake when I look at it from that perspective. But now I'm going to definitely be fake when I look at it from our perspective, right? Because it's a little bit different. It's a whole lot different, right? Here's why. This is not a situation where you were shelved. This is a situation where you got to thrive. You got a platform. Look, when you sign a 1-year deal, they call them two things, Brad. They call them prove it deals. And what's the other thing they call it, Brad? You said it yesterday.
Are you talking about the prove it
when you
deal?
sign a 1-year deal, you're either proving it, right?
Or 1-year rental.
A 1-year rental. There you go, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, if you go back to the beginning of this season, what was he supposed to be in this offense? Now, we're not in those meeting rooms, so we don't know. When a guy goes into camp, who knows what he looks like and how he emerges? But it stands to reason to believe that the 1,000-yard rusher that you paid, a 4-year contract to in Chuba Hubbard, that's your lead guy. So you were coming in to play that secondary role because the guy that we drafted to kind of be our lead guy to bump Chuba to the secondary role is down for the count, right? So with injuries that inevitably happen to running backs, unfortunately, you got a chance to do something that was very, very special. And boy, did I love it. Because like I said, I watched this Friday after Friday after Friday where Rico was playing running back and he was playing quarterback and he dang near was carrying Gatorade and all this. I mean, the kid, look, I talked about this early in the year last year, man. When Rico started going off, there's a long line of AC Reynolds running backs that Rico stands on the shoulders of. Bobby Bowens, Derek Eddington, Josh Meadows, Andrew Oak. These are high-level running backs at the high school level, right? Rico, in my opinion, was the best of all of them, right? And the stats prove it. If I'm not mistaken, Western North Carolina's leading rusher all time, right? Or one of them anyway. That being said, you get a chance to come here and do what all of us back home knew that you could do. You did it. Cool. Why does it have to be this after the fact, right? Especially when you kind of knew, man, like they drafted Brooks. That's who they want. Like Dave Canales and company, they are excited. You spent a 2nd-round pick on Jonathan Brooks. Now, I get it from the, perspective of Rico. Like, look, I produced, man. I should get my opportunity. But here's also the other thing. And Brad, you talked about this yesterday. This is not the same NFL that Earl Campbell and Emmitt Smith and, Terrell Davis and, you name your running back from the past. Roger Craig, where they were a featured back carrying the ball 30 to 40 times a game sometimes, right? This is an air raid league. The reason that most teams have created a 4-2-5 base defense is because they're having to circumvent linebackers to cloud coverage because of 5 wide receivers on the field. It's a throwing league. And on top of that, most teams do have a 2 running back system. Now, Steve-O said something earlier in the chat that I do agree with. I don't think that Dave Canales handled this situation the best. And that's where this comes from. So Rico was going back and forth with some people on X, and he was like, hey, I can't find, because I think it's been taken down at this point, the person that actually tweeted at him. But his response was, it gets hard when you run the same thing 75 to 100 times, right? Basically saying like, look, I get the ball sometimes I don't. If I'm the hot hand, I get the ball. Look, I made videos about it. The whole community did. Everybody was saying the same thing. Dave, you got to figure this out. And it looks like Rico's the hot hand, so that's where you got to go, right? Him also, the last time I had any type of input, I called my shot, right? I called my shot, and I was able to get it done against Miami. But Brad, before you go, I found this video, this clip, and I thought this was really interesting of what someone had to say about that right there alone, calling your shot in this NFL.
I don't know what Rico Dowdle thinks, but like the age of player coaching is over. It's been over since the 1940s. So you having full on input of the offense in Pittsburgh, the year after they fire Mike Tomlin resigns after coaching that team for 19 years, and to think that you're going to have input on the run game as the downgrade from Kenneth Gainwell is insane. Let's not sit here and act like Rico is like by far and away the starter for the Steelers. Jaylen Warren had a fantastic year last year. Rico Dowdle also only had one other 100-yard rushing game after the Cowboys game. And if we look at the end of the year stats for Rico Dowdle, if we just sit here and we go through from week 9 on, what his stats were in rushing: 18 attempts for 53 yards, 19 attempts for 45, 6 for 38, 18 for 58. I know that like a lot of that was Dave Canales' decision making and not putting the ball in Rico's hand nearly as much. But let's not act like when he had the ball in his hand more than 10 times in a game that he was as effective as he could have been. And you could say scheme, you could say this, you could say that. This is now the 3rd team in 3 years for Rico Dowdle. Now you have to ask the question, who's the problem? Is it the scheme or is it Rico Dowdle?
I'll be honest with you. I don't necessarily agree with the last part of that, but a lot of the other stuff he said, I do. And the reason is because, look, you're not the problem necessarily because you got your opportunities. I could argue that you only got your opportunity the last year in Dallas, and that's why you ended up from Dallas to Carolina, because maybe they just didn't trust in paying a contract to someone who had a 1-year situation, right? A 1-year 1,000-yard rushing situation, and it wasn't on a winning team, right? But then you come to Carolina and do what you did. I don't necessarily have a problem with the bouncing around, all that kind of stuff. Here's where my problem comes in, Brad, because I love this kid, man, and I hope he goes and he's awesome wherever he goes and whatever he does. But Chuba Hubbard, okay, Chuba Hubbard was on a roster with Christian McCaffrey. He was the second guy. Chuba Hubbard was also on the roster with Deontay Foreman, where Deontay became, in a lot of ways, the feature back, right? Chuba Hubbard finally rushed for 1,000 yards one time, and they gave him a contract. What did he never do, Brad? What did you never hear? Exactly. You never heard anything. Never said a word. Lunch pail guy is the reason why so many people go so hard for this guy. Even sometimes when we be like, hey, man, look, Rico, bro. I mean, look, it's not lost on me in the comments this year. I got a lot of pushback. I usually am the guy that's like super positive and don't say a lot. I got a ton of pushback this year from people that were like, dog, why you like dogging out Chuba? I'm like, I'm not dogging Chuba. It just look, and I'm not even gonna lie, Brad. It was partly biased. It was partly because of what I was seeing, and then also because of how much I like the guy. But what did Rico not do? He didn't say a word. He did not say a word, right? So look, you got your bag, bro. You got a chance to be featured on a stage where you performed at the highest level. Why you got circling us for what? I don't know. You go.
Well, I mean, man, it's like a relationship, man. Like, I mean, you engage with the female and like the intimacy's great. The, conversation, you know what I'm saying? Like you open up to each other, you build each other up, everything's good. And then there's something like a job or a, extraneous, you know what I'm saying, like factor that comes in that causes the dissolution of the relationship. And it's really one of those end on good terms. And it's like, I will always be cool. And then one of the people goes and is like, I couldn't stand that, the whole time, super weak, super lame, limited mind, all, and it's just like, whoa, 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 you know what I mean? Like, and that's like what it is here. I mean, for both of the parties, like this seemed like a good thing. I mean, for it being, a 1-year rental, which was what it was at the start. I mean, you can just hear from Dave Canales', his press conferences. I mean, he is enamored with Jonathan Brooks. And I mean, and you can see why. The kid's fast. He's big. He has vision. He can catch out of the backfield. He can block in pass pro. I mean, the kid has all the tools, which is why they drafted him in the second round, and why Jerry Jones was beating on the table and angry and mad because Carolina swooped in and traded up and took this running back that they wanted. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The kid played at Texas. And for the circumstances you come in as a backup, then, readiness meets opportunity. Chuba gets hurt, and then he, gets the opportunity, and he come in and he makes the most of it. You know what I mean? 2 just off the charts. NFL Network, everybody was on us that week, the Dolphins game. I mean, and so things did sort of, and I won't even say sour, but things tapered off at the end. You could tell, I mean, the guy was banged up. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like he was banged up. He ran slower. He ran more labored. I think he was able to get a little healthier again. But I mean, you can't discount the games that Chuba had, like especially the Rams game in the rain. I mean, Chuba took over. And we won that game that we weren't supposed to win, which then started having people have those, glasses of like, man, we can, and those thoughts like, man, we can make the playoffs. I mean, we beat the Rams. You know what I'm saying? The Rams is number 1 in the NFC. And he was still given opportunities. And we were all disappointed as fans to see those 3 yards in a cloud of dust runs where he couldn't get off anymore. I don't know if it was the scheme continuing to be, the same thing. A lot of people like to blame a lot of stuff on Dave Canales. But it seemed like a really good pairing for what it was. And then the business side's going to take over in the offseason. We've already committed, $40 million to one running back. We've already committed a high draft pick to another running back. And then we have a third running back who's played, fairly well on special teams. He's had a couple blunders, who can also catch out of the backfield, who is also exceptionally fast and quick, you know what I'm saying, and has a lot of third down back capabilities, in Etienne. And we're just moving on. I mean, you don't put that kind of money in the running back position normally. And even when we did it with Double Trouble, they were our 2 major backs, and they had no trouble splitting carries. And even they knew at one point, one was going to have to move on and one was going to get to stay. We couldn't continuously pay that kind of money to 2 running backs and field other people on the same field and be competitive. So it's like we all watched The Last Dance, and everyone talks about how, like, in effect, Jordan was a psychopath because he found these crazy, like, minuscule, obscure quotes and, especially back then without any Twitter or anything online, of things to get him excited and to get him ready to play when, he played teams, you know what I'm saying, like what would now be, I guess it was the Bullets then or somebody like that. I mean, you got to get yourself hyped to play a team like the Bullets. That kind of stuff happens. Yeah. And then also with us not having an 82-game season, it being 17 games, I mean, you still got to do things to get yourself up. So, like, if that's what this is, like, oh, yeah, it's what's up. But, I mean, if it's a talking point and you're really angry, come on, man.
So I see it two ways, and we got a lot of feedback in the chat on this one, and as I figured we would. My boy Vietnam said, "I'm gonna say this though, Chuba doesn't have that home run ability that the top tier running backs have, but he's getting paid like he does." When was the last time that Chuba ran for a 50-yard touchdown? Well, I would push back on the contract because he's not getting paid, top tier money. But I understand when it comes in terms of like, what he's getting paid. Like the length of the contract and at the time that he signed it was a, kind of bottom tier, middle of the road, if I would say. Not top tier, middle of the road, but kind of a bottom tier, middle of the road for a running back. But again, this is where it is important. I say this all the time, man. Just be quiet. Look, you don't think Chuba gets upset? You don't think Chuba felt the same way that maybe Rico felt about the fact that Rico came out 200 yards, 180 yards, and now I'm put back on the shelf when I'm healthy? You know what I'm saying? Like they giving me 2 or 3 carries or whatever like that. Here's what I would question. When the production started to fall off and Chuba was having a good game and you weren't getting the amount of carries that you were getting, is that part of why things started falling off? Could that be a part of it? Could that have been, right? So what's going to happen in Pittsburgh when it happens up there? That's my only thing. And look, you're right. Nervash said something, the same thing that you said, Brad. Maybe that's just how Rico motivates himself. Maybe. But let me tell you something. When you come out and say stuff like this, and if you rush for 40, 50 yards against us when we were circled on your list this year, when we come out, just know it ain't going to be us. It's going to be the Pittsburgh faithful that's on your top. Just keeping it real, right? It's going to be them. Same thing I talked about. Actually, I ain't going to go there because I said I was going to stop talking about that. So I'm going to leave that alone. But the point is this. If you come out and say, and look, like I said, some people need to motivate themselves this way. But I just wonder, like you said, which one is it? If I'm going back and looking at the season, if you're saying this coming off of things like, what you're saying here, get hard when you run the same thing 75 to 100 times, that's not motivation. That's frustration. Last time I had any type of input on my mama was when and look, we talked about it. That inside zone, hey, look, they doing this here. We welcome that kind of stuff. But what did I tell you, Brad? Sometimes you give people an inch and they want the whole mile, right? Pause. Because I gave you that inch there. So now it's like, okay, well, when we get back in the meeting room, let me give you this input. It's like, okay. In real time, because you're out there and you're seeing it, we can see it too, by the way. Mind you, we got quality control people up at the top. We got our coaches down here on the floor. We can see it as well, just so you know. But you're actually out there while it's happening. You can see a guy where his fingers are and how what stance he's in and all this other kind of stuff. Hey, you got any suggestions? Yeah, I see this right here. Okay, let's do it. And Brad Ickey was like, yeah, let's do it. But notice who he went to. He went to Brad Ickey. You don't think that there's a reason they promote Brad Ickey to his next position. But Brad also has to know, because look, Brad is kind of one of these also ran guys. I do not look. Blueprint, what did he say to Deontay Johnson? Hey, man, we want to make you our ex, man. We really want to feature this thing around you. Really? Oh, after I literally quit on blocks, y'all brought me here and want me to be your guy? For real? So you saying that I can be the guy that I was up there and come down here and be that as well? And I still get rewarded? Sure. No. You don't get rewarded for bad behavior. And I'm not saying that this is a bad behavior thing from Rico. Like, let's not get this twisted. But let me just keep it a buck, man. I'm a Panther fan first. I am a Panther fan first. I bleed this. I wake up in the morning and I prepare my shows throughout the week. I come on and do my content like everybody else. And I'm passionate, right? So that y'all know that this ain't just a biased take from me when I talk about how much I like this kid. You say you got us circled? Bet. You ain't the only gun that's ever been made because we got you circled too, fam. That's what it is. So, any last thoughts, Brad?
Yeah, you'll be playing a completely different defense this year. McCarthy's a good coach, but McCarthy's going to do what's best for his team as well. And once, the dude was given like the lead back role, we started to see him on the injury report. That was a thing. And that's football. That's why you have multiple running backs. Saquon Barkley, 2 years ago, almost, basically 200 some yards rush. I mean, dude was getting fed the ball every play, pass two out of the backfield. And we saw last year the kind of wear and tear that had on him. He looked nothing like himself this year.
Yes.
And that's cream of the crop, Dusty Rose said, just don't stop. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, he was the bell cow type back for this day and age. And you've seen the kind of, wear and tear that put on the kid. And it was like, after 4 or 5 games, that's the kind of wear and tear you showed. Not after 17, not after a Super Bowl run, after 4 or 5 games. And then also, everybody looks at, Dave as this, youth pastor look and this super hardcore players coach, man. Like, there's a little more edge to him. And that's why you could see there was that established hierarchy. Yeah, I can go to Brad Isaac and say these things, but, and then later, he went over there and said something to Dave, and Dave was like, yeah, all right, But, I mean, could you imagine Brandon Jacobs going up to Tom Coughlin and telling him plays?
No, because it would never happen.
It would never happen.
You talking about him? I could go down a list of respectable players. Ask Emmitt Smith if he ever went up North Turner and did that.
Or I think Brandon Jacobs is respectable. I'm just talking about, like, you have these demonstrative kind of coaches that don't ever deal with this kind of nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
And then certain guys, like I said, Dave being a younger guy, you know what I'm saying, the kind of demeanor he has. And like you said, I mean, you try to give these guys a little leeway, and then it turns into, and this is not like players don't ever tell your coach, but like that's why they have film study.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you study film as a team and coach and position groups. And you say, I see this, I see that, they're doing this, they're doing that. I mean, that would be infuriating and super annoying for your players to be running up to you on any level. Hey, I see this happening. Let's run this play. Hey, I see what's going on here. Let's run this play. It just doesn't work like that.
No.
And it won't work like that in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, if you're going to be angry, get ready to be real mad.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Especially, not for nothing. Here's another thing. Get ready to be real mad because the coach that is coaching Pittsburgh used you a lot. Don't get me wrong. Like, Rico, like, there was a few times where Mike McCarthy used him in some really big moments when he was still there, in a couple of 12-4 seasons. But he was not even close to being a featured back. So how do we know on a $12 million contract if it's not going to be the same thing, right? You got Steelers fans calling this a downgrade from Kenneth Gainwell, right? So
yeah,
so I'm not, and this ain't me shooting at Rico because I wish Rico. What I really think this is, Brad. I think that Rico, one, having that kind of, you played for the Dallas Cowboys. We talking about the creme de la creme as far as media coverage in the NFL. And if you took your helmet off in Arlington, you might have 50 people that knew you when you walked out the building, right? You come to Carolina and you become a superstar because those couple of games that you played where you exploded out of nowhere, right? Those things, and to do it at home, man. I mean, home relative because he's kind of South Carolina, kind of, by way of Gaffney and also Asheville. But to do that at home, right, is a big deal. I think that there's a level of this that is a little bit of disappointment because you definitely wanted to come back and play for your hometown team, right? But you just happen to run into a GM that is smart in his decision making. Because I think that even Brad, we were talking about this after Rico had a 180-yard game. You and I had a question. Do you think he brings him back next year? And I said reluctantly. I'm talking about the most reluctantly. And I still say reluctantly. No, I don't. Because they drafted Brooks. And like you said, look, if you got Rico on a 1 year and he rushed for 1,000, Kenneth Gainwell went and rushed for 1,000. You know what I'm saying? Oh, no, he didn't rush for. Did he rush for 1,000 last year? But he was
He led them in receptions and receiving. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't know. I only seen a couple of their games, so you know, I mean, I didn't follow them like that.
Well,
They
he
said in
was
the chat. They said in the chat he led in receptions.
right in receptions. My bad. But he was also used as a running back too, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, and so they don't really have a running game. So yeah, he went to a place where he is going to get some opportunity, no doubt, right? But again, the running back position is. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was drafted in the first round by Kansas City. Isaiah Pacheco took his job. Now Isaiah Pacheco is gone, and insert Kenneth Walker. You see what I'm saying? It's so cyclical at that position, it's ridiculous, right? So now tell that to a guy that's working out every day. So there is two sides to this, 100%. And I want to be fair in my assessment from that perspective. The only thing I get hung up on is what you say publicly, because this stuff don't have to be said. Hey, look, I said this a few years back. When CJ Stroud was outside kikiing with everybody he could, white party with Michael Rubin, podcast, telling Caleb Williams, man, hey, trying to big dog Caleb Williams, hey, you're going to be great in this league, bro. Where we at now? And all that stuff started coming back up after that playoff game. He had the worst week of his career after that because people started bringing up all that stuff again. Trust me. Yeah, like I said, that circle go both ways. You come out there and rush for 40, 50 yards, you going to hear about it. It ain't going to be from me because I'm burying this after this. I got nothing else to say about it. I wish you nothing but the best. But when it comes to this, I'm diehard. Again, it's just what it is, man. Yeah, when it comes to that, I'm diehard. So you shoot at my squad, I'm shooting back.
What's I'm saying, if you got that microphone in your face and you got the pursed lips and the agitated tone all the time, I mean, who knows what that is in the locker room? I'm glad to hear you say that, you know, if you shoot at our squad, because, hey, I'm at this point with it. Hey, man, if you're mad, Rico, here's a cape. Now you can be super mad. Moving on.
Hey, that was a bar. I ain't even gonna lie. Shout out to y'all in the chat, man. There's a ton of people in the chat, a ton of comments that have come in. I'll try to go back and answer some of these. Panther Gal said even Princely alluded to they have that they have players. The scheme was a problem. I agree to that, you know, to some degree, like because I saw that too. You know, we laugh about that because of how he answered that question at the end of the year. But you know, we
talked about that yesterday.
We did talk about that yesterday, man. I don't have the tweet pulled up, but I thought this was interesting because I don't know the context of this, but I do find it very interesting, the timing. Princely had shared like one of his stats, like an advanced metric stat, right? Where he was like ranked in the top 10 in some like pass rush win rate category or something like that. I have been perched that Princely does tune in from time to time. So if he is here in the QAnon, you know, you can secretly answer this, but this is what I find interesting, man. Again, the talking, man. Why say this after the Phillips contract? Like, just go prove it, bro. Just go prove it. Because that's what it felt like. Now, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe it was response to a question that he was asked, right? But the way it looked as it was tweeted, it just kind of came out of nowhere, right? I don't disagree. Some of the scheme it may not be favorable for your, you know, what you do. Outside of the Nick Scorton saying like, look, guys ain't taking stuff serious in here and lighting a fire under everybody. What do you not see Nick doing? He ain't talking. It's just work. Let us talk. You know what I'm saying? That's what we do. We talk. Sometimes we'll talk for you, right? Now, I know that this is not the biggest platform in the world, but in this space, when we say stuff on here, it does travel around, right? So let us talk. Because we talk big. I'm going to talk heavy for Princely Umanmielen. Because Princely Umanmielen was the real deal at Ole Miss. And I think that he could be the real deal here, but I think that he has to develop. But we don't need to, you ain't got to prove it to us. We know. Just go show it. That's it. That's it.
Well, I mean, and we also know, like we were talking before, I mean, your coordinator, who they extended again, doesn't like to play rookies. And if it wouldn't have been for certain injuries, Scorton probably wouldn't have got the kind of burn he got. And that's just what it is. So we're hoping this year, with Dave not having to put his entire onus on the offense and having, Bevel and Izzik over there doing things, he can look at the defense and be like, listen, him and Dan Morgan, like, we are drafting these players, and in 4 years, we're going to have to pay these players or not pay them, figure out how they fit in with our team, and we need some film. We need some plays. We're trying to build, and you got to show us what we have in these assets by giving them some burn.
That's a fact.
You know what I'm saying? Like, playing 30-year-olds on 1-year contracts over your rookies, it makes no sense. And so I'm with them. I feel like the kid should have got more burn. And so I feel like going forward, hopefully, this is what we're going to see, is more play and more playing time from these guys that we've drafted these last couple of years, so we know what we have in them and they can develop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, quarterback is the only position that you don't want to get to the NFL and try to get better with reps from, like an Anthony Richardson, standpoint, like a guy that hasn't proven or been any kind of passer at all in college. You don't want to take that guy and then try to throw him to the fire and just hope he gets better.
Yeah.
But when you got these other positions, receiver, defensive end, tackle, defensive tackle, you know what I'm saying? Like, you want to put these guys out there and let them take their lumps.
Yep.
Especially when they've had that kind of production in college. And I get it. If I'm Princely and I'm looking at James Pierce, seeing he got 10 sacks and seeing the kind of like playing time he got to get, and then I was basically his equal stat-wise on the level at Ole Miss, I'd be pretty peeved too. But I'm with you in the fact of, you can't be a distraction. It's like we were just said about Rico. If you got the pursed lips and you've got an issue every time they put a microphone in your face, they're going to move you eventually.
That's a fact. That is a fact. And especially if you're not, hey, look, depending on, that could happen. I cannot understate how deep of a edge class this is. Do you have a lot of superstars at the edge position? Maybe, maybe not. Because I think that there's some of these guys that could get in NFL facilities and start developing from a strength perspective and turn into a whole different player, right? On some of these lower end guys.
Well, no, it's even the higher end. Julius Peppers at North Carolina never hardly worked out. Of course, he looked like a specimen, but when he got to the NFL, he talked about how engaging it was for his body to actually be on an NFL weight training system. Mm-hmm. He said when he was in college at North Carolina, he would literally pour bottled water over his head to make it look like he was sweating and he was working out when the coaches came through. This is a Hall of Famer.
Man, bump Julius Peppers, bro.
Everybody can get better by getting in the gym and working hard.
You know how frustrating that is, bro?
To hear that? Yeah, I bet it is.
To be that gifted as a human. That's just, yeah, man. Goodness. Anyway, I think you muted yourself, Brad. Just FYI. But
no, I was laughing at it. I was like, he said, man. He got 12 sacks as a rookie with that. You know what I mean?
That's ridiculous, bro. It don't make no sense at all to be that. Just to be that talented, that, like when I was talking about Caden Proctor earlier, and I'll just, kind of go off on a tangent for like 2 seconds. He's just one of them guys, like, what you do on the field is just as important as how you look on it. But Caden Proctor just looks scary. Like when you see him, because you put on the football helmet, that's what made Cam look like a cyborg. Because Cam's like 6'6", and then you put on the helmet, it makes him about 6'9", and it's like, man, this is crazy looking for a guy throwing the ball. Equally, it is kind of an anomaly seeing Bryce be able to play at the level he plays at how small he is, right? And I know that 5'10" is not, that's the average. People forget that because there's people that'll see Bryce in public and be like, man, I thought, People act like this dude a hobbit. Well, yeah, in the pantheon of NFL people, yes, but the average height of a male is 5'10", right, in America, right? So if you're above that, you're in the higher percentile, right? Or the higher percentile, yeah. But when you play on behind the offensive line where most of your guys are 6'4", 6'5", stuff like that, yeah, you look short. You look very small, right? So there's a reason why they want people to be that size. But if you can play above it, which he can clearly, then hey, world is yours. Hey, salute to Cali Blue. Appreciate you for coming through. Cali Blue says that they like the show, Brad. Says that this podcast is a grown man / woman's keep pounding perspective. And I truly appreciate it. And they subbed to us today, man. I am so thankful. Welcome to the One Carolina channel. I appreciate you so much for joining us. All right. So, man. All right. We did something, Brad. This is going to be one of the last things. It's not going to be a long show today. We probably got another 10, 15 minutes we're going to go because I got stuff I got to do today. So I just want to come on quick. But we did a thing, bro. One of my favorite free agents got re-signed, Brad. Shout out to Nick Scott.
Man, no. Don't.
My man, Nick Scott. Yes, sir. Let's go, Nick. Hey, Brad, I know that you had to be celebrating this. I just know you had to be celebrating. We re-signed Nick Scott. Can you believe it? Interception dropped in the playoff game, Nick Scott. Missed tackle sometimes, Nick Scott. But boy, is he always available. I ain't gonna lie. No, I know it's a lot of conjecture here. I actually am kind of excited about this. Brad, I'm not gonna ask you if you celebrated. How hard did you celebrate?
There's a meme that they used to have of Andre Brower when he was the chief of police on a show called Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and there was a scene where everyone was celebrating, and he was not grinning. He had the complete pursed lips, and then everyone threw their hands up and celebrated. He grinned, super small grin, and then went right back, and that was the length of his celebration. That was probably 30 times more exuberant than what I did when I read this news yesterday, and I cannot remember the news source, but they were like, "Oh, he had 100 tackles, and he's such a stalwart, and the Panthers defense, especially the secondary, would be lost without him." And I'm like, and look, Fayetteville said he better get cut. They paid him $3 million. He's super in the plan. Terrible. You know what I mean? You start whining like, come on, yeah, no. Like, come on, man. You know what I'm saying? It's like that old, what's that show? Mad TV sketch where he'd be like, Shelly, come on, Shelly. Look, I mean, 2nd and 15, and you let a tight end run right past you. Well, what did Dr. Lee say in, I was going to say Stomp the Yard, in Drumline? What did we rehearse? Why do we rehearse? You are the free safety. Why are you letting anyone run past you? I mean, oh man, 90%. No. I'm not gonna do him that bad, but quite a large chunk of why we got beat twice by the Saints was him being out of position and what J.C. Horn thought he had in help from Nick Scott. And I just don't understand. I mean, some people were talking about we may take the safety from Oregon. We may do all these different things. And you want to talk about pursed lips with the microphone in my face? If I was Lathan Ransom, I'd be somewhere right now punching a heavy bag.
Nick Scott at the ripe age of 30 is still developing. Nick came through with the blick and said, "What's good? What is good? I'm back." Look, nah, seriously though.
If we hadn't signed Kenny Pickett, we would really, I'd have even more hatred for this. There was only a certain amount left because of the Pickett signing, but it was still enough to be very, very perturbed, angry, disappointed, disgusted.
All right. Let me tell you why I'm excited. There's one more domino to fall. One more. Because I told you, Brad, when I listed my favorite free agents, my favorite free agent list, Nick Scott was on that list, right? Why? Depth. That was it. That was it, right? I wanted Nick Scott back for one reason and one reason only. And we got one more domino to fall because you just said it. Who do they take at 19? Because if they turn in the card for Dylan Theinman, who I believe will be off the board before 19, personally, because I think he is that high level of a safety. But again, because of BPA, if he's there, he's in play. I do not. I've seen people mocking Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. I don't see it. I think he's a good player, but I don't see them making that move here. I think Dylan Theinman is just a difference maker, right? But with that said, you do this for one reason and one reason only. And somebody else in the chat said it, and I'm going to find it. And it was Callie Blue, our commenter and new subscriber of the day. Ransom. Because that's exactly what I said on the last pod. On the last Mint Street Monday we did, Brad, when we did our not the last one, the one before last. Mint Street Monday, when I said I wanted Nick Scott back, it was because they believe that Lathan Ransom is going to emerge as the next best safety next to Trevon Merrick. I strongly believe that. So you make this signing just in case you have a bit of a, adjustment period in that you have a bit of a, I don't know, like maybe injury or whatever. But Nick Scott knew. Bruh, look, Nick might have came through with the blick, but the market wasn't that big for you, big dog. It wasn't. As a matter of fact, it might have been you get signed way, way after the fact. But I really believe that they made this move because they want to bring Lathan Ransom in as the starter next year. And not for nothing, now that old Dave has given up play calling, I got a little bit more eyesight over top of this, right? So I can make sure it happens because it cannot be lost on me or anyone else that part of you winning that Rams game when you won it was because of big plays from who? Lathan Ransom. And a loss from who? Trevon Merrick, who was out of the game, right? Now, a little bit different position, playing a little bit more of a box safety, but the kid can cover too. There's some development that is left to be desired there. But I believe that Lathan Ransom has the chops, and I think you make this move because you want to see him. Like, because I know people are like, man, why didn't we go out and make a play on a free safety? Because you feel like you got your option in the building. Or if he's not, then you can go out and draft it. But like I said, the last domino to fall is the 19th pick because I don't know that. Like, there's safeties out there I like. I really like Jalen Kilgore, right? But Jalen Kilgore is not going to come in and be Lathan Ransom right away. He is a freak of nature who I believe needs a lot of development, right? A lot of people want to compare to the Nick Emenwari. Nick's on a different level mentally when he came in the league and physically as well. But this kid, look, I feel like he's got it. And he's only going to add to this already great secondary. And it's not going to be that big of a drop-off, right, in the beginning. I think it's going to be a huge add. So, Nick, in my opinion, Nick Scott is insurance. I do think he'll make this roster, but he's insurance. I don't think he'll be the starter. I think Lathan will be. That's my take. So, like I said, Nick came through with the blick and said, "What's good?"
Well, I just hope we don't get in the habit of paying $3 million backups.
Oh, they like, Bud Clark was talked about quite a bit on my live that I did with Real Ball Watcher. Apparently, people like him a lot. I don't know a lot about him, but I guess I'm going to have to go look him up now. But anyway, I don't have much else. Like I said, this is going to be a short show. This is not going to be the 2 hours that we normally do, just because I've got some things I've got to do this morning. Man, we got 276 watching between two platforms. I honestly, I mean, I guess I don't want to say I didn't expect it because I feel like we put a lot into the show, so we try to give you the best value possible. But it is kind of a slower Monday, so I appreciate y'all. I'll go through some of these comments and we'll just read some as we work our way out the dough. Brad, did you have anything else you wanted to cover with any of these topics that I talked about before we respond to some comments and get out of here?
I did just want to say on the Kenny Pickett signing, normally that would mean something for your boy Bryce, because signing the Caucasoid backup usually does mean that people will be like, hey, I mean, he's pretty good, I mean, but I think that I mean, he's younger. I don't know how much he gives us over Andy, but Bomani Jones coined this term black up, and it's when you get a black quarterback, you sign a black backup so that the people don't clamor for the quarterback. And it really hit home with me when he coined it, because it was basically, he worked in North Carolina before he, moved to, Miami and did highly questionable, and then moved to New York, where he, works for Wave Entertainment now. And he just couldn't believe how many people were constantly talking about Derek Anderson being better than Cam Newton, and how if Derek Anderson could start just one time and really get a shot, how much better the offense would run and look with him at quarterback. Because of what we all know as Panther fans, and should know, that there was no way ever. And we saw when they tried to penalize Cam for not wearing a tie, when he was injured. I mean, we were instantly down 7-0 in the Seattle game. And I just want to say to all fans, please don't start clamoring for Kenny Pickett to play over Bryce Young, because Kenny Pickett is already on his third stop, and he hasn't shown a modicum of the kind of, things that can get you excited about a quarterback like one Sam Darnold. So please don't start. That's all I got.
That was multi-layered. We'll just leave it there. Shout out to my dog Fayette Nam with the super chat, $1.99. I love Brad, man. I do. I'm telling you, dog, you crazy. My man Fayette Nam says, keep the content rolling, and Scott equals toilet paper. They actually make a toilet paper called Scott's. Interesting. You might want to buy into that stock. Look, depth. Like I said, depth. Shout out to my man Jay Issue. Great show. Yes, sir. To your Kenny Pickett point, I agree. My thing, so you guys have attacked it from more of the black quarterback perspective. Mine is not that. When I was retweeted, when I had said that inevitably that there would be a faction of the fan base that would be calling for him, it wasn't because of that. It was literally because there's a faction of the fan base that no matter, like when Bryce shows up on the field with his helmet, before his helmet's even strapped, they're already calling for his demise. You know what I'm saying? So I was speaking more to those people. Like I feel like, they'll be like, oh man, we need to give Kenny Pickett a run. It's like, all right, man, cool. We'll do it just for you. How about that? Let's see. JP says, I never understand why fans hate on depth signing. Every team needs them. I agree. I think that every team does need those depth signings. And again, I think that Nick Scott in this I was about to say a Bible term in this dispensation. From this perspective, yeah, it's that. It's just a depth guy. Like I just don't see. I mean, it's possible that he starts, but I think that, like I said, in that room, you're not bringing Nick Scott. They saw the same stuff we saw. And look, Nick Scott didn't play horrible last year. Like, he played serviceable, but there were some times where he played absolutely horrible on the biggest stages, right? And had some really horrible plays. But for the most part, he was solid and he was healthy. So, I mean, for the most part as well. So that's important. Ms. Velbyhack said, as great as this offseason has been so far, this move was definitely puzzling. Dan Morgan's been cooking, but right here, he read the recipe wrong. I hope you're right in retaining him for depth.
Nice wordplay.
Yeah. Lathan is hitting is a hard-hitting box safety like Murray. We need a ball hawk free safety, and Scott will be the backup at the position. Chill. No, I'm not going to chill. You chill. But anyway, besides that, Lathan played a bit of both at Ohio State. Yeah, I mean, he's really, I agree. We definitely need a ball hawk and safety, right? But I think he can do both. That's just my opinion. So, yeah. We definitely need a ball hawking safety. Yes, that seems to be a constant theme that I keep seeing here. Locker room player Nick Scott. That came from my man Rob Blake. So look, that's all the comments that I see that I needed to kind of backlog and take a look at, because some of it was just kind of repetitive. But anyway, all minds are clear. We did it, Brad. Another great show. Man, I appreciate y'all so much for joining me. For those who have joined as new subscribers, I appreciate you too. For the OCs, man, and we had one new OC member join the fold, and I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Make sure to subscribe to this channel, like the video. And if you want to become a member and support the channel for $1.99 per month, you can join the OCs, the original cats. And we appreciate you for that. Brad, any last words, my friend?
Black up, Bomani Jones. Catch him on the right time.
Hey, man, it's been another great episode of Mid Street Mondays with the One Carolina Show. I love y'all, man. Keep pounding.